Hey everyone, it's Cami Simmons here, your host of the Trensetta Lounge, which is all about sitting down to give you the practical tools and resources to help you find your special sauce, also known as your purpose. I'm joined today by someone who has created their own sauce, set their own path. He is the co-founder of a Black-owned co-sharing space called The Gathering Spot in Atlanta. He is a former Montessori student, which we'll get to later in this interview. And he is just an overall entrepreneur. His name is Ryan Wilson. Ryan, thank you so much for joining us today in the Trensetta Lounge.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, so let's just check in real quick because I know a lot has been going on around the country. Just how are you doing? How are you feeling?
I'm feeling okay. I mean, I think that there is, certainly a lot of awful things that are happening right now. But I mean, at the same time, I think it's an opportunity for us as a business to reset. And I mean, we were in a local publication here in Atlanta today, and part of our quote was that there's no time to be sad, and that's really how I feel. I mean, this is uncomfortable for sure, but it'll pass too. And we're trying to stay as positive as we can, keep one foot moving in front of the other.
All right, so let's talk about your time as a Montessori student. For those who don't know, Montessori is an untraditional education.
I started going to Montessori school when I was pretty young, and I think the cool thing about the program is that it allows you as a student to have choice, right? And so all throughout my education, I was able to kind of gravitate towards things that I was more interested in. And overall, I mean, it's a liberal arts kind of based education. So you're constantly exposed to the synergy between like different disciplines. And again, the way that the day is structured allows for a lot of choice to be present, which I don't know, I think has been helpful for me in terms of learning how to approach problems as an entrepreneur. A lot of the skills that you learn in Montessori are important, as well as the age group where they bring several age groups together in a classroom. So you have the opportunity to be able to learn from people who are younger or older than you, depending on,
Some folks who are Montessori alum, Beyonce, Bill Gates, just to name a few. The concept of the gathering spot. Let's talk about that.
It's interesting where life takes you. So I spent most of my life wanting to be an attorney. I ended up going to school in DC. I went to Georgetown in DC, was a government major there, and then went immediately to Georgetown's law school. Again, it was kind of a plan for me that hadn't really changed most of my life. And the summer of 2013, I went back home to Atlanta, where I'm from, and was working at a law firm. And it was the same summer of the Trayvon Martin case. And so George Zimmerman is acquitted of Trayvon's murder. And I got an email from some friends that was asking kind of what we were going to do in response to that decision. And I've been doing a lot of advocacy and diversity and inclusion work in DC. And so I wrote back to them that it would be amazing to have a place to be able to meet with other people, to organize, to be able to build community, whether it be for social or professional reasons. And several months later, started to write the initial business plan for the Gathering Spot. So what what TGS is now is a private membership club rooted in community and culture. We have event space, collaborative like workspace, and then our full restaurant and bar. But I like to tell folks we're not in the space business. We're more in the community business. So the business centers around all the people that call the club home.
Okay. And you built it with your classmate TK Peterson out of your dorm room as well.
Yeah, so TK was a roommate of mine in DC, and when I kind of wrote the initial plan, I needed somebody that had the ability to help build a business plan, and or from a financial perspective, right? I didn't have the finance and accounting background, but he did, and so we started to work on the business every night, and over time, it became just the business plan matured, and and we decided to go at it full time.
Being an entrepreneur, when do you think that really clicked for you?
It didn't click until I was in law school. I mean, I wanted to be a lawyer, and I thought that was the best way to be able to help people. And so it wasn't until I got into the middle of that experience. I ended up graduating from law school. I don't practice law now, uh, but prior to that, had no interest really in being an entrepreneur. Didn't want to start a business. This was really started only because, again, I was really passionate about trying to figure out how to solve this problem, which is bringing people together.
Okay. And then you said that you brought in TK to help with the money side of things. You know, in business, you have the money side of things, but then you have the conceptual, like look and feel, you know, side of things. And one thing I noticed, because I was a member for a little bit at the gathering spot, the first thing I noticed when I walked in there was the smell of the space. I mean, it was the smell, it was the music, all the way down to just the whole entire aesthetic. Who came up with that concept? And can you just talk about, like, where did all that come? Because that was what I first noticed when I got there. I mean, it's definitely a vibe, to be quite honest.
Thank you. I mean, we worked on that part of it together. So, I mean, I definitely am more responsible for the kind of creative aspects of the business. And TK has got a finance background, so he's able to take those concepts and build models that make the whole thing work. But in terms of the concept, like the feel of the club, we worked really collaboratively. I mean, there were a lot of spaces that we were inspired by, and so we had a design team that would sit with us and help us go through ideas, and then come back with sketches of the concept. And then, you know, we made selections over time, and the club came together that way. But that was definitely a lot of different people who were involved.
Let's talk about some of the events that you have at the gathering spot. You all have a lot of big events with major companies like Spotify, Google, all the way down to celebrities like T.I., Killer Mike, where you all did the panel on his Netflix series, which I checked out and thought was very funny and definitely had a lot of lessons in it as well. What was one of those events where you just sat back and said, wow, we really did this?
Interesting, right? We've hosted like 5,000 events since we opened, and so there are a lot of really, really cool moments. I can point out a couple of them. I mean, early on for us, two people that were been with us since the beginning, Shaka Zulu, Ludacris, came in to talk about the making of Fast 8 in Atlanta. John Singleton talking about the 25th anniversary of Boys in the Hood. On the political side, we did a lot of things with Stacey Abrams as she was running for governor, Vice President Biden, or Senator Cory Booker. I mean, it's been amazing to be able to host a lot of different people from across culture. I mean, it's not been just sports or entertainment, but also politics and tech. And so, yeah, a lot of cool moments over the years. But I'm grateful that the club has become a place where a lot of people feel comfortable coming to host things. In addition to the corporations that you mentioned, we host a lot of different brand experiences.
Okay, and let's talk about networking, but I like to call it building a relationship. So I know you all are businessmen who, you know, you are connected with those who are in the political sphere, who are executives, musicians, I mean, from all different aspects and all different industries. How have you learned to build a relationship? Let's talk about the basics there, because I know it might be some, you know, tuning into this who really, you know, may have a challenge with this. Let's talk about it.
Yeah, I mean, I think that the biggest thing when you're looking at relationships is you got to understand. I mean, it sounds cliche, but I mean, it's true, right? People do business with people. They don't do business with businesses, right? And you've got to take a long-term approach to forming a relationship. People who look at the short-term gain that may be achieved, I think a lot of times are missing the mark. If you look at some of the most successful partnerships, a lot of them happen after years and years of those people being in relationship with one another. That doesn't necessarily mean that you need to be best friends with everybody, but staying in contact with people, understanding that it's important a lot of times to ask what you can give before trying to take something from someone is a good way to build to build rapport and build trust. And so that's been the approach that we've taken. I mean, we've again asked how we could be helpful more times than we've asked to to be the beneficiary of something. But it all comes back around. I mean, you see over time that like when you invest in people, they invest back in you, and the relationships are what endures more than anything else. But you've got to take a long-term approach. Just because you did something nice for somebody on Monday doesn't mean that they need to do something nice for you on Tuesday. Look at it, as a decade or 20-year long thing, and you'll realize that over the course of that time that things were exchanged.
Can you give a tangible example of what that may look like for you, maybe?
Yeah, I mean, so as a business, you get asked, to try to be helpful, particularly when part of our business is hosting different events and experiences, and we've taken it personally to try to make sure that we are being a good partner for the event, and that may be in some instances introducing the event to members of the club to try to gain support for an event. Not that we would have gained any more from doing so, but realizing that if the event is successful and the client leaves feeling that we were really engaged with and cared about what they were doing, right? That they come back or they refer other people to come to us. And so that's on the business level. On the personal level, I mean, the whole business that is centered around relationships. So, I mean, there are numerous examples where we have, again, kind of extended ourselves personally, and you never know who you're talking to, right? I mean, you never know where a person is going to be, sometimes a year from when you're talking to them, right? Things can change quickly. And I think that you should always try to be in the position where the person feels good about the interaction that they had with you. And not totally be centered. I mean, too many people focus on vertical networking or relationship building, and really a lot of times it's the peer group, it's the horizontal network that you grow with, which is actually the one that pays the most dividends. So don't write off your peer group or think that you're ahead of your peer group, behind your grow up together with a group of folks and take care of one another. The folks that have already quote unquote made it, a lot of times it's really hard to get to them. But doing stuff with people who are kind of in the same place in life as you are is a lot of times the best way later down the line to get ahead.
Thank you for sharing that. And then also let's talk about membership. Just with current country circumstances, are you all how is membership playing out for those who are current members and also those who are interested members?
Yeah, so I mean, the business has always been centered around community and bringing people together. So I mean, we can't do that in the way that we traditionally have done it, which is bringing people together inside of the club. But we had already built digital platforms and ways to connect virtually. So I mean, that isn't canceled at all. We're still meeting on a regular basis, sharing a ton of information, producing a lot of content that I think is helpful. And so yeah, I mean, the setting has changed for sure, but the goal of what we do each day, that hasn't changed. And nor do I think that the value of being a member of the community has decreased. I miss being in the club each day and the kind of the comfort that brings. But I have been in as much communication with the membership and in connecting people and working to solve problems or again, share information as I've ever been. So, I mean, things are fine on that front. That everyone is going through this. This is one of the few things that you can say with confidence that there's no business or person that has not been impacted by what's going on. So I'm not trying to represent that, but the community definitely is resilient and is enduring. I mean, we're actually still in Atlanta, but also in Washington, D.C. We're building a club there, and we're about to start construction in L.A. too. So nothing about this virus has stopped our plans in that respect. And so absolutely, if a person is interested in any of those cities, there's a dynamic community in each one of them that I think that you would enjoy being part of.
And then I also wanted to discuss a quote that I found from the Forbes article. And you said, quote, "We will believe in the power of human interaction since we focus on community and connection. We want a physical space for people to build relationships. Those are the kinds of new connections and relationships you can't build online." What do you think the mission of millennials is during this time of COVID-19, during and also post COVID-19?
I mean, I think millennials during this time period should be focused on one, trying to make sure that you're being as diligent as possible to position yourself well for when it's over. I mean, I do think that there's going to be a new normal for a while. I don't think we're going to get back to it, back to where we were in January, February, immediately. But I do think that this is a time to prepare. I'm not one of those people that thinks that this is a time where you should relax and kick your feet up. I think that this is there's a reshuffling of the deck that's occurring, and this is a time to make sure that you're being diligent about whatever advancement for you means, whether that's personal or professional, that you're using the time at home to reflect upon what goals you do have, and then to go after them. As far as the in-person piece, I mean, yeah, I'm ready to get back in person, and this is definitely not the full version of what we have. Like that, that's not what we wanted to build or offer. I still think that there's something to being in community with people and being able to look them in the eye and converse with them in person. And we built physical tools before we built all of the digital ones. But with the situation and it being not safe to gather in that way right now, we had to pivot to what is available. So that pivot doesn't mean that the work that was happening before doesn't exist. It's not an ideal set of circumstances, but it is the most safe way to do to community building. That's what we're going to do. I mean, I'm not one of those people with this that's I mean, it's sad, but like we've got to continue to go on, and it is what it is. Yeah. Me being like super sad about it isn't actually going to change the set of circumstances, and it's not going to get me out of my house any faster. So keep going forward.
Okay, and what are you doing to retool and pivot, or retool and pivot? Like, are you journaling? Are you listening to music? Are you, how are you finding ways?
I'm working. I'm in this room 12, 14 hours a day, working on all things that we were working on before, kind of the future growth of the clubs, but also working on continuing to make sure the membership base is good. I mean, some of our efforts have actually extended outside of just our business. I'm concerned deeply for a lot of businesses that are going to have a really hard time getting out of this. So I spent a lot of time during my day talking to a lot of those companies and strategizing on ways to help hopefully get everybody to the other side of this. It doesn't do us any good to have, some companies make it to the other side. I think we've got to be working hard to make sure that everybody does. And there's a lot of people that are impacted by this. I mean, so we're shining the spotlight as best we can on a lot of the forgotten industries and people that have been a part of our lives, but unfortunately, because of, it's unsafe to kind of be out of the house right now, have faced the kind of the worst parts of that isolation. So that's a ton of small businesses, but like, think about your barbers and your nail salons and your hair salons and your like we got a lot of people in our community that rely on being able to do things in person that are hurting right now. So part of our job right now is to try to alleviate some of that pain.
Do you think that this is a time, and this is just something that I've been thinking about, in the past during like recessions and depressions, a lot of Fortune 500 companies grew from out of those times. Do you think this is one of those times? Do you think we're going to get a lot of those companies that sprout out of this time?
Yeah, no, I definitely do. I think the desperation and negative circumstance are a lot of times the best points of inspiration for businesses. You see new wrinkles and and new cracks to kind of jump through. So no, I definitely think we're going to be seeing a bunch of new companies that already existed doing new things, and then companies we've never heard of before starting to solve new problems. Again, this is a reshuffling of the deck. There's going to be a similar to kind of other time periods in history where we kind of remember before that moment and after that moment. I think that we're going to remember, time before COVID and time after COVID. I think it'll be marked separately. And so, yeah, with that comes, it's going to come some negative things. You're going to have some businesses that won't make it, and you'll have some businesses that get started out of the kind of the ashes.
What books are you reading, or what books are on your reading list?
This is always a tough question for me because I am fortunately right at this very moment and not reading a ton of things for leisure, and most of what I'm reading is centered around things in the business. I mean, from a current events perspective, I'm a total news junkie, and that to me is probably where I'm spending a little bit more of my time reading, because keeping up with the way that the world is changing is a little bit more important to me right now than some of the books. I'm surrounded by books that I either have read or am supposed to be reading. But during times like this, I think sometimes the most helpful information is just what's happening in the world that helps you, to that last question, that helps you figure out kind of the new opportunities that exist out there.
Okay. All right. And then also, as part of this Trensetta Lounge series, I have a segment called I Got a Question, where I basically ask out of the box, crazy questions, not too crazy. I ask the first question, and that is, what is the last thing that you Googled?
The last thing that I Googled?
Yes.
I think I Googled. So there's a really interesting McKinsey report that I saw a citation for. So I Googled the report to read it in full. Kind of nerdy, but it was the last thing I Googled.
Okay. And are you more, before I ask this next question, I have to ask, are you more of a club type person or a speakeasy?
Speakeasy.
Speakeasies meaning, like, have you heard of Busboys and Poets in Washington, D.C.?
I spent a lot of time with Busboys.
Okay.
Which one? Which one? 5th and K, 14th and V?
Are you more of like a club person or a person who has to go to a speakeasy, listen to some jazz music? And
I'm more of the speakeasy. I'm not a club person.
Okay. Okay. So if you had to choose one snack, even though I don't think you can bring snacks in like a speakeasy, but if you had to choose one snack to take with you to a speakeasy, what would that snack be? Is there
snack I have every day? Popcorn. It's my favorite food in the world.
Okay. Do you sprinkle anything particular on it, like any seasonings or?
I'm pretty boring these days. It's a little like, so I pop it on the stove. So I'm not a bag popcorn person. So I pop it on the stove, but just a little olive oil and salt. I'm good.
Okay. And then the final question is, what's the first thing you do when you get out of quarantine?
I'm gonna go to work. I'm gonna go back to TGS. I'm fortunate that the thing that I do each day is the thing that I love. So I'm gonna go back to being in the space every day.
Okay. And where can folks find and connect with you and just stay updated, and also find out more information about the Gathering Spot as well for those who are interested?
So if you go on the web, we're at thegatheringspot.club. On social media, we're on every platform at The Gathering Spots. If you want to keep up with me, I give a little bit of different commentary about the club a lot of times. I'm at SpotOnRW, but most of what I talk about is just different things that are going on in the business. So any of those platforms, we're super happy to chat on any of them.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Ryan, for sitting down with us in the Trensetta Lounge. I really appreciate you just taking the time to share your knowledge, inspire, whoever's going to be looking at this video, and hopefully, give people information. That's really the big thing.
I appreciate the time. I look forward to connecting again and with the rest of the community as well. So give me a shout.
Thank you so much for sitting down with us today in the Trensetta Lounge. If you are a trendsetter or know someone who is, feel free to DM me, send me an email at thecamisimmons@gmail.com. I'll be happy to bring them on to the show. And as always, make sure you like this video. If you joined us today, make sure you also subscribe to be notified when the next video comes out, and comment below how you're feeling. Until then, I will see you all in the next video.